Welcome to the BrightInsight Digital Health C-Suite Series. I'm Chitra Nawbatt. Joining us today is Jamie Burgess, Head of Marketing, BrightInsight. Jamie, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chitra, and thank you for facilitating the interviews this week. They've been fascinating so far.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jamie. Your passion, or one of your passions, is marketing in digital health, and you've been doing this for more than 15 years. You're an expert. Why is it so hard?
It's a great question. I think just first and foremost, it's the regulated nature of the industry. We're talking about, continuous blood glucose meters where patients are counting on the data that's coming from that device. We're talking about algorithms that could auto-titrate your drug dosing. These are, real medical products, right? So every single thing that you say in an interview, every word that you write, all of that messaging has to be very accurate for good reason, right? To keep people safe. But that's definitely, I would say, one of the big challenges in marketing in a highly regulated space. The second one, which is really like the intersection of digital and healthcare, right, where I've always sat, is how do you make tech sexy? Like, who cares about what is a microservice and why would a biopharma executive care, for instance? So I think also being able to translate the benefits of tech to people that don't necessarily know tech.
But sometimes in trying to make the tech sound so sexy, it makes it sound very generic. Because frankly, a company in the digital health space serving providers or payers or pharma or med tech or even direct to consumer, many of them use the same language. Everybody's a platform, everybody's doing digital, everybody's doing data, everybody helps patient engagement, everybody's doing analytics and AI. Mm-hmm. So how do you parse through that to have very specific targeted messages, very aligned with your company's purpose?
Yeah. So the digital health word soup is like my biggest pet peeve. Everyone has a platform, exactly what you just said, right? I think the way to stand out is to actually be differentiated, right? Like, there's always going to be some overlap, I think, in terms of messaging. But if you say you're compliant, then have a quality management system to back that up. If you say you're a platform, you better have an architecture that actually is a platform. If you claim that you're working with all these top companies, who are the companies, right? And have those customers, deliver for them, delight them, and have them be able to speak on your behalf about the value you're providing. So that's kind of my main thing is, right? People can there's a lot of like Me Too messaging, but just actually be the best, right? So that's probably the biggest.
One of the trends we're seeing is this notion around end user engagement, end user adoption. And end user is defined, it could be different things depending on the type of company. The end user could still be a B2B, or it could be B2B2C, or that C, consumer/patient. How do you humanize, how does the messaging differ, and how do you humanize messaging to reach these different types of end user personas?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it starts with, first and foremost, really understanding who the end user is, right? So for BrightInsight specifically, we're a B2B company, but the products that we're building and supporting for our customers are used by, it could be a patient with a rare disease who has a companion app that's helping them do their at-home infusions on their own. It could be a caregiver who's using an app to help care for a loved one with Alzheimer's, for instance. So each of those end users is different, right? It could be a lab tech working with an in vitro diagnostics device. So really understanding what are their pain points, what's their unique journey, and then making sure that we're providing value along the way. So we do a lot of market research at BrightInsight, starting with all the products that we're developing. Why are we developing this? I think in the early days of digital health, back when it was like mHealth, I don't know if you remember that, there was a lot of just tech development for tech development's sake, that data is not connected to that, let's just connect it, right? But now I think there's more of a focus on, well, who are we really trying to help with all these solutions, and identifying their pain points and building from there.
And to the point about who are we really trying to help, whether you're a B2B, B2B, B2C, B2B2C, or direct-to-consumer company, is there a trend where everything is ultimately just driving to the ultimate end user, which is that patient, that human being? Is that the trend for all of these companies?
So in terms of how the end user has evolved over the past few years, I think COVID definitely catalyzed more of a focus on digital healthcare, and patients are demanding these digital health interfaces and tools and apps, right? Like we all survived maybe without seeing our doctor for a couple of years, and that those telehealth experiences, sort of like the Uberization of healthcare, is what patients are looking for. So I'll give you a personal example. So my stepdad is a type 1 diabetic. He was recently in the hospital. He's fine, but in the hospital, he couldn't use his Dexcom, continuous blood glucose meter. So he wasn't able to access the real-time data about his blood sugar levels that he always has access to. And, he's going to the providers and the folks in the hospital like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you integrating this data? So I think more and more patients are not sort of an afterthought from a tech perspective, but they're demanding these types of solutions. And so they're taking, I guess, a more active role in their care.
Jamie, you're in a very rich intersection. What is the digital market, the digital health trend that you think will dominate market opportunity this year?
Good question. I think, there was a lot of investment in digital health over the past few years. That's slowed down. Obviously, it's challenging time for whether you're a big tech or a startup or whatever type of company you are. So I think 2023 will be that year where the true leaders emerge. So the companies that are managing their cash responsibly, that are delivering for their customers. I think a lot of startups that are out there with some of the the word soup we mentioned earlier. I don't think all of them will make it, right? I think this is the year for the true leaders to really emerge.
Jamie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chitra.